fair to say that outreach has changed and it's evolving right in front of our eyes. What are some of those things that we can learn from other people? Specifically, what are some ideas that we can learn from behaviors from European that can help us as Americans when it comes to our sequences? I have some ideas and I think they can really help you. Check it out. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. My guest today is Kiran. Kiran and we got a chance to connect on LinkedIn for the past about a year and a half, 2 years now. He's been listening to our show for about a year, and he loves it, and I know you love it as well, and I'm grateful to have him on the podcast. But that's not the reason why I have him today, because he's selling in Europe. He's in Scandinavian countries, and one of the things that he's shared is just the behavior of way Europeans view sequences. It's totally, not totally, it's different in a way that we do it here. We're very we're Americans. We're just going to go out and we're going to do it like cavalieric, like maverick type, Western cowboy type situation. And the behavior of Europeans, a few years ago, they've had the GDPR in play, policies and laws in place that's impacted us here in the States. And many of you are probably not selling to Europe, but the behaviors of European, I feel it's something that we're seeing come towards America, especially in the way that people are looking at emails, in the way that they're viewing their privacy. It's important that we look for things that we can apply to help us to improve our game. If we continue doing the same thing over and over, not seeing great results, then something got to give, right? And the buyers want better sellers. They want to learn and they want your ideas. It's just we need to convey it better. On this episode, we're going to break down some ideas. Kiran's going to give you some things that works for him. He is successful in his career and been selling for over 10 years, leading sales teams and his own organization. And today he's going to break down some of the things that's working specifically right now for him when it comes to sequences. You'll hear things about subject line. You hear ideas about the call to action. You hear about the spacing of the emails. You also get ideas not only about that, but also where he puts phone calls in, because they have challenges when it comes to using a phone. They don't do it the way we do. Oh, it's going to be a good one. If this is your first time listening to our show, go ahead and do yourself a favor and hit the subscribe button. We'll notify you every time we drop a new episode. Additionally, I want you to be able to just listen and take notes. Listen to this again, play it on repeat, because there's insights here that can really help you, and you can play it for your team so they can get more from it. As we go in, you're going to get a chance to learn about him a little bit more and why he's so relevant for this particular conversation. Kiran, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Donald. Really excited to be here.
Well, I was bragging about you in the teaser there at opener of the show, talking about how we connected on LinkedIn and it's been connected for a couple years now, I think. I don't know. Maybe.
Yes, it's been a while. Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah.
And we've gone back and forth, and it just kind of, the planets aligned, and it made perfect for us to do this episode. So I'm really excited to have you on the show. Why don't you take a second or two and tell us a little bit more about what you do, man? I feel like what you do is fascinating, especially selling in Europe and so forth.
Absolutely. So I've been in sales for over 10 years now, sold across different parts of the globe, sold products and services, and currently I'm selling a SaaS product. It's called RDoc. It's a Norwegian-based company. I'm selling all across Europe. I'm responsible for building the top of the funnel, using various methodologies and to get the right customers and partners on board. And outside of this, I have had two companies over the years, one in the health and fitness space and another in the current space that I'm working on. It's basically called admeetings.com, where I am actually working on building a platform to make these business meetings as simple as possible for businesses to connect with their ideal clients and have any kind of conversation at all. Well, I hope to be in that place, and that's my side project. I would say a passion project.
Well, cool, man. Well, congratulations on it, and I wish you all the luck and success with that. And I have no doubt that you won't be. I have no doubt that you will not be successful. I feel that you're one of those people that just you understand obviously sales, you understand processes, but very goal and driven oriented. So cool stuff, man. Well, let's dive into this. And this is the reason why I felt it was important to have you on the show, because as a sales rep, an individual that's been selling in many different industries across many different countries, we find that the sales process has gone global. From no matter where you sell, like you're gonna have um, interactions with people internationally. Your territory may be small, maybe U.S. based, or maybe it's in Europe. However, it's important that we understand people, and we understand how they think and so forth. And I wanted to do a comparison today to just get an idea of what cadences are like, especially in Europe right now, because underneath the circumstances we find ourselves in, people are a little bit more um, not as eager to spend money in some industries. And with that, we've seen an onslaught on email and automation and AI, where to the point where cadences are really taking a beating right now. And people know some of those cadences are going to happen, and they want to make sure that they have things that work. So I am coming in as a pupil today, and I want to get from you, what is it like? What are some of the challenges you're seeing right now, first off the bat? And then let's go into the cadence. What's working right now specifically in Europe, and what are some of the things that we can learn on this side of the pond from that as well? Does that sound fair enough?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think the most important thing here to understand selling in all across Europe is understanding the mindset of the people that you're selling to. I think
Mm,
the one thing to consider or to really think of is that the kind of people you're selling to, the
mhm.
personas, that matters a lot, right? Whether you're selling to C-level executives or whether you're selling to head of the departments, whether you're selling to, again, the most important thing is what kind of industry are you selling to, right? Are you selling your products or services? When you can put all of these things in one place, only then you can have the cadencing set to go after them, right? So the couple of challenges here is that you cannot reach out to people on phone as opposed to countries where you can actually have a cold calling, easy cold calling in, let's say in the US, right?
Yeah.
It's not easy to just pick up a phone and call somebody here in Europe and say, hey, I want to sell you this. Do you have like 10
Why is
minutes to
that? Is
chat?
that just like
Right. And
cultural? Is there a law? Are there like why is that the case?
yeah, there are two things to it. One is it's the law, right? It's the law in itself. We do have the GDPR law where you need to respect the privacy of an individual, and you cannot really reach out to them unless there is a consent from the other person that you're trying to uh, reach out to. If he or she has given you a consent on your website link or a form that you're trying to sell something, they must have seen your article and they've filled out a form for you to reach out to. Only then it makes sense to just give them a call and say, hey Donald, I saw you filled out a form. I just want to reach out to you to see how can I help you today, right? And that makes absolute perfect sense. But if you're doing a cold outreach, that could be a bit challenging, right?
Yeah.
Have you have to have some sort of a consent to reach out. But yes, we are definitely reaching out to people on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is definitely one of the most popular tool over here in Europe for people to get the attention, where you can get the attention from them.
Hmm.
But then other than that, there's of course emails, right? And the most important thing, it's also the culture, right? And if I have to sell you in the US, if I'm selling you a CRM, right, and if I have, let's say there are about 13 to 16 uh, steps on an average, like in the
Yeah.
cadencing steps that I have to follow in order to get your attention to jump on a call with me, right? But in Europe, it's not the case. You have to uh, you can definitely still follow the 13 to 16 steps of the cadencing methodologies and steps that you use, but you cannot just follow one after the other for 13 days. You need
Why
to
not?
have those 13 steps, follow that for like, let's say, 30 to 45 days.
Uh,
Because the reason being is that you need to give the person a time to really digest the email you have sent,
uh,
right? Because the entire sales process is slow here and all across Europe, because people need time to really digest the email and understand what are you trying to sell me in the first place, right? And do you know me? I mean, what kind of value are you bringing me while sending this email to me? It's more
go.
of the value people look at than the emails or the phone calls that you're making.
So a couple things so far that I'm learning. One, you have three other methods. You have email, you have two other methods. Email and social are probably your main primary method. Unless you have consent, you can't make a phone call.
Right, right,
Right.
absolutely. I mean, we do try and have some sort of a conversation around, yes, making the call, but you need to have some sort of a consent before you make a call. Yeah.
Okay. So then we have those two. And then with that, the emails that you're sending, your cadences tend to be a little bit longer. because you need to have give people time to digest and so forth. And I can see that culturally, like a lot of European cultures, it people enjoy their time. I hate calling to talking to clients in Europe in August because nobody's around. Um, it's like literally, it seems like
Absolutely.
the whole continent, like everyone is on vacation in like the south of France or Italy or some part of the mountains or somewhere. But this idea is that we take people are taking a little bit more time to be conscious of the things that they're getting. And I feel this part applies to all of us. You hit on something that I've been really really on recently, over the past year and a half, is this term relevance. I really just want to put it on a shirt, and just have it like all the time, because that I feel is value. When something is, you can make something valuable to, you can create value when you give me something that's relevant to me. So I use a silly example, but it just gets the point. If I have a flat tire on my car right now, something that's highly relevant to me is a way to fix said flat tire on that car. It's harder to find what may be relevant or what may be valuable to someone. How do you go about doing that? And then how do you convey that in emails? I know some of the simple things out there, you can find triggers, but you have a more challenging circumstance where you don't have phone really. You're really focusing on
Right.
email and LinkedIn. How do you go about identifying those things that we can steal or borrow these ideas from?
Absolutely. I think one of the most important thing to really look at when you're prospecting in the European market is, like I mentioned, one is the personas, right? And when you are really looking at a persona in the European market, it again depends on whether it's a C-level executives or whether you're talking to the head of the departments. So once you understand the personas, you have to draft, let's say, the messages, because there's only a few seconds of attention you can get on your emails where
Mm-hmm.
people are going through, right? And the most important thing is, what kind of subject lines are you using to get the attention for people to open up your email? That's one thing. And what's the call to action, right? You don't have to really talk about the kind of services that you have in length. Well, you might be selling a very complex tool which needs a lot of explanation over an email, but it's not necessary that you have to have that a long length of description written in one email or the first email, right? So that's why we split this into, let's say, 6 emails, and we split this into 6 emails, 4 LinkedIn messages, and then you have, let's say, 3 calls in the end.
Mm.
Why? How do we make calls in the end? The reason why the calling cadencing is set to the end, because while you're having this conversation on the emails, you'll have to look at the engagements of the emails, whether it's open rates, or is the prospect engaging with whatever you've shared, right? Is the prospect connected with you on LinkedIn? Is the prospect responding to you on email, whether it's a yes or no, whatever it is? When you have that sort of an understanding, when you make a call, it gets easier for you to sort of connect the dots. Okay, hey, I just sent you an email and I saw you clicked on this link, right? This is another way of sort of getting to reach out to them without their consent, because they've been interacting with you on the email.
Mm-hmm.
But when you don't have, let's say, any of these open rates on the emails, when you don't have LinkedIn connection accepted, uh, it doesn't make sense, right? So you need to formulate your messages, and you don't have to, let's say if I have to send 6 emails to you, Donald,
Yeah.
right? I will not be sending emails to you one after the other every 6 days, or like one after the other every day, one email. Let's say if I have to sell it to you in the US, I might send you first email on Monday and the second on Wednesday.
Yeah.
But then here in Europe,
Typical.
and I'm sending you the first email on Monday, I might be sending you the next email next Monday or Tuesday,
Dang.
because you need to give that time for people to. You don't have to come across as a person who's spamming you. You might as well come across as a person who's trying to really consult, who's trying to really educate you, trying to share some valuable information, something more relevant, like you mentioned, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you give the time for people to look at the emails, only that's when you get the attention, right? The second week when I send an email, the person might open the email or read through the email. The person may not respond to you. Third email, you send the third email, right? And then in the meantime, try to connect with the person on LinkedIn, right? So when I said the cadencing for these markets, the first thing is of course email. The second again goes through LinkedIn. The third again email. A fourth again an email step, and again an email, one step of LinkedIn. You need to really have a long period of gap between these emails and LinkedIn, right? Just because somebody accepted you on LinkedIn, you cannot really just send them a message and say, hey, thanks for connecting, Donald, can we chat about selling your CRM, right? It doesn't really make sense to do it in Europe, because you will not get the response. You will be blocked. You'll be completely blocked out. You're going to
Yeah.
be, are you going to get a simple one sentence, not interested? You don't want
Yeah.
that, because once you get that, you cannot really go back to them, because they've verbally said that they're not interested to talk to you. There's no point
GDPR.
calling them. There's no point. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So you have to stick to these certain, methodologies in order to get the attention. It could be very different, of course, in the US, and I've sold in the US market as well. I don't really have to wait for a week to send a follow-up email. I could just do it in, the next third day or the next day after, right? And I could just, pick up the phone and say, hey, I just sent you an email, can you just check and let me know what you think? So these are some of the methodologies. When you follow, only then you have definitely a great amount of success closing a
So
deal, or even just getting that meeting. Yeah.
so here's a thought that I have too. So go back. I like this, and I agree with you. Um, you bring up the fact about the couple things so far. One, you push your phone calls. You do make phone calls, but you push them towards the back of the cadence. Two, you lengthen out the cadence a lot longer because you want to give time for people to dissect it. And I think that's fair. The human side. What I don't like, and I say to see this all the time, I think this is a great solution, is when people do. I don't mind somebody um, reconnecting with me, because half the time I may have missed the first email. But then I don't like is when they say 3 days later, bumping this up. I'm like, I get it, but I think about this as like a line. Like I have a line of 100 people, but you're coming to skip everybody and say, I just want to bump this up. I'm like, bro, get back in the back of the line. Your value proposition wasn't even compelling enough. That's why it didn't have an impression on me in your first one. So get to the back of the line. Don't tell me how to manage my own inbox. So I always hate, and I use that word cognizantly of the understanding that term. I really hate or dislike what that bump up. So if you're listening to this as a sales rep, do not do that bump up. You're automatically getting to the back of the line and delete it. But I also understand the idea there of giving people the time to soak something in. If I truly do have a challenge and this thing is relevant enough, it will have an impression on me. And I do have other things that are critical. It doesn't mean that your priority is my number one priority right now. I do have to pay employees. I do have to take care of my family. I do have other things that are pressing. So I get from the human standpoint where that comes from. Now I understand another week or so later, it gives us an opportunity for you to naturally digest it. And it doesn't seem like it's just a natural automation. So I like that factor with it. I want to double back on something you mentioned earlier, then we'll come back down to further talk at cadence. Subject line. We are going to produce a post, and I'm going to share some of my top 3 subject line for 2024, 2023. That's work, and give some percentage with that. I'm curious to hear what are some of the subject lines that work in Europe, or the formula when it comes to articulating a good subject line, or that has
Sure.
worked for you.
I
So,
think absolutely. I think the most important thing here again is the messaging, which
mhm.
which really plays a major role in getting the prospect to respond to you. It's definitely not nudging them and saying, hey, I just want to put this email on top of your inbox. That's absolutely no. It's because you need to communicate value. You need to communicate the relevance, like you rightly mentioned. You need to communicate, most importantly, what kind of value are you bringing on to them by having this 15-minute conversation that you want to get them on a call with. The subject line that really works is, again, goes back to the kind of personas we are talking to. Let's say if I'm targeting head of IT, right? As a head of IT, he or she might be using a variety of different applications. And if I'm selling them a tool which can manage all of their applications at one place, right? I need to use a certain terminologies to put that on the subject line. One of the things that's worked really well for me is that you have a lot of leaders in your own company. Talk to
Mhm.
them. You have CROs, you have head of IT, you have CMOs in the company, and they're all C-level executives, right? You can talk to your CEO as well as a sales rep, and ask them what kind of emails are they receiving, what kind of messages they are actually getting, and what is more attractive for them. What they thought in the recent month, the subject line was so interesting that they opened the email, because end of the day it's about understanding that persona. If you're targeting head of IT, talk to your head of IT in your team and ask them what email was so impressive for him in the last month or so, And you can usually use these terminologies, and that's where you can actually pick up those messages from, right? I was talking to one of the head of IT recently, and he said, just put what you're trying to sell me directly. Just say, hey, I want to talk to you about, HubSpot CRM, for example. HubSpot CRM for you, for example, right? Okay, because I might use HubSpot, of course, right? I might like HubSpot, so I want to maybe dig into HubSpot. So that's why I like the word HubSpot. That naturally made me open the email, because this is something that I'm actually working on right now,
Mm.
right? But this doesn't happen all the time. You need to sort of find ways to connect with people, the kind of messaging that they are really talking about. I think the best platform for that is LinkedIn. Just go
Yeah.
onto LinkedIn and see what they're really talking about, what posts they liked, what posts they shared recently, and use the same terminologies. It also shows that, okay, you did a bit of research on this
Yeah.
person
Is that a big
to
deal
get
in
the
Europe
attention.
for what prospects to know that
It is.
you know them or that you've done homework?
It is definitely a big deal, which actually gives you more meetings than the ones than when you automate. So automation, of course, works, but at the same time, if you want to have a very valuable conversation, the personalization, doing a bit of research, an account research or a contact research, really helps you to get that attention from the prospect that you're trying to go after.
What are
Of
some
course,
things?
the
Sorry.
market, yeah,
What are some things that I need to look at when it comes to research, though? Like if and you go back in your particular situation, you don't have to tell us names. One of your companies, your prospect that you worked on recently, what did you research about their organization or found? Because I think sometimes that's where sellers come in. They're told to research, but they don't. I feel that they don't necessarily know what to look for. And I also like the fact that you said what they like, because I get sellers saying, "Well, they don't post on LinkedIn. Look and see what they've liked." And it kind of shows what they have, have interest in. But can you give us an example of one of your recent or something, a deal that you worked on last year where you did LinkedIn research? What did you
absolutely. I think,
find?
sure. So one of the things I wanted to get this get the attention of this prospect from Switzerland, right? Um, so I was trying to sort of go after, got connected with a bunch of LinkedIn, bunch of the teams on LinkedIn, and trying to sort of message them. Um, got connected to a bunch of them. Not everybody responded as usual, but then they accepted my connection request. So now the thing for me was to get their attention to jump on a call with me. So I was just
Hmm.
going through a lot of because since I was selling SaaS, I was going through a lot of posts from their senior most team member, and I saw that one of this person was attending a seminar on in a different country. He was basically attending a networking event. Basically, he was attending a workshop about a certain technology event. Let's say technology event. And naturally, I sort of found, okay, this person is attending this technology event in the next coming month, right? So my next subject line for that person was about this event. And this event, they had a session. They had hosted the session on let's say about a CRM, a session on CRM, right? So the subject line was session on, let's say, CRM.it.
Yeah.
So this sort of got the attention, and he probably opened the email because I was tracking the open rates, and he probably opened the email and he sort of found, okay, this guy knows that I'm attending this session, because then I also sort of put that on the note that, okay, we are also attending the session. We're going to be there. Can we meet for 15 minutes?
Mm.
Right. And this sort of made me connect with this person. He immediately responded, even though I was trying to do multi-threading over the last
Yeah.
couple of months, which of course didn't happen immediately. It took me some time to get there. But then as soon as I found out that this person is attending an event, and all of this was through LinkedIn, of course. And
Yeah.
I had to follow on LinkedIn. I had to like their post. I had to follow this person because this was a big company. It is really a great deal for me to get that one meeting. And that's when I caught this person. And we
Mm.
had this call, and we're still having this conversation, and hopefully we're going to close something soon.
All right. I like that. Congratulations on that. By the way, as you're talking and I'm evaluating my process, naturally, there's two things that I see that we do, and similar to what you're talking about. One is finding content that can grab attention. Two, finding content or information that makes it relevant, um, to have the that be have a conversation. Because yeah, you maybe going to the conference is one, your attention grabbing. Two, relevancy, maybe the fact that you see that they're doing a lot of hiring. in the organization, and your tool can help them with hiring. Or perhaps if it is going to the conference and you're speaking about a pressing topic, perhaps you can help them with that topic, or help them do a product launch better. I don't know, but I think there's a couple sides to that where sellers can really grasp. Again, you're grabbing attention, and two, can I bring relevancy? Can I identify relevancy that helps to bring value? This is good, man. This is good.
Absolutely.
Listen, there's so
Absolutely. I
much.
think the trigger event is something. Yep.
No, keep going, keep
I think
going.
the trigger event that you mentioned about hiring is could also be part of the cadencing, right?
Yeah,
Which could be as, let's say, a trigger event, right? You need to keep looking out for a person who's actually hiring in a company, which could help you to sell the tool or sell the CRM for this new hire in the company, right? So that's what we
hmm,
call a trigger event, which sort of helps us to compose or draft a message specifically for this trigger event, right? Hey, you just hired, let's say, a new team, uh, new ID person in your team. Do you think you might need a tool to check it out? Things like that.
yeah.
And I think one thing that really works is keep the message as simple as possible. Right? That has worked
Come
really
on,
well for
can you
me.
say that
You
one more
don't
time for the people in the
necessarily.
back?
One thing that works really well is to keep the message as simple as possible, even
Yeah,
if it's a one liner or a two liner or a three liner, nothing
yeah,
more than 3 lines. I don't really like personally that if somebody sends me an email to sell me something, I see the quantity of that email. If it's more than 3 or 4 lines, if it's 2 sentences, I won't even read it,
yeah.
because you're wasting, because I'm spending time here, and time is money, and I'm sure everybody agrees with that. But you need to find a proposition which can
Hmm.
convince me in a one line, and only then I'm going to buy your solution or a service or
S-
product,
re-
whatever you're trying to sell.
So essentially, you're telling that salespeople need to be marketers. They need to say a proposition, a value proposition in
Absolutely.
one sentence.
Absolutely. And I think they do have a lot of marketing team helping them. You just need to go out and reach out to your CMO or the head of marketing
Hmm.
and say, hey, I need to find a message. Can you help me with this? Right? I'm
Hey,
going to send thousands of emails in the next 3 months. Can you help me with messaging? I don't need to be perfect. I don't need to really know how to draft a message, right? I mean, because you're a seller, right? As a salesperson, you might not know everything, but I think the most important for you to is to know how to communicate internally within your own team to get that messaging out of people, out of your own teammates, right? So sometimes what I do is that I also talk to people, just send some emails to random my friends and say, hey, what do you think about this email, right? Before I send it out to
yeah,
an ideal prospect, I want to just check in with you. What how do you feel about this email, right? They say, I didn't like the subject line, the line, I didn't like the call to action, right? That was not enticing for me to respond to you. Fair enough, right? Because it's just my friend. He told me, it's an honest answer, but then I might tweak it now.
yeah.
I might then send it to you, and I might get the attention from you, right? So, and you need to tweak the message every week, and that works really well. You need to keep
So
tweaking
good.
the message. You don't have to stick to one message for 1,000 prospects or 1,000 contacts that you're trying to reach out to. You need to tweak it could be even a single letter, it could be a single word, single subject line, or it could be just a small thing on your email that just sort of gives you a different understanding of what you're trying to sell or what you're trying to share. And that really works.
So let's do a recap here. Phone is not a major part of your outreach at the top of the funnel, at the top of your outreach, your sequence. You're looking at in Europe, you're looking at more bringing a phone into the later part once you get some consent. Two, you're doing more email. You're doing emails. Emails, you're spacing them out longer, maybe like one a week, and then making them super short. Have great subject line, and then specific call to action. Call to actions, are your call to actions like let's book a meeting, or is it open ended question, yes or no? What do you use for your call to action?
I think the first email should never be to ask a person to jump on a call with you.
Hmm.
It's only to sort of understand if there's a good fit or not, right?
Yeah.
Because the moment you ask somebody for their time, they will not respond to you, at least in the very first email. The very first email should be all about, do you think it's a good fit for you, right? Just give them an option to say yes or no,
Okay.
or give them an option to just say that maybe, you know things like that. But the moment you ask them for a call on the very first email, they will not even reply to you at some time. They will say, okay, not interested, because you're trying to force them to jump on a call. You might as well just don't reach out to me at all. I don't want to talk to you. Who are you?
Yeah.
So these are some of the things that I think it's also important for you to put yourself in the receiver's shoes sometimes, to see, would you respond to your email if you received it like this? If you sort of
Truth, truth. All right. Well, this is good. Great subject lines. Use phone later on in the process, towards the end of that process. Heavily usage of LinkedIn, to identify current, things to grab their attention, as well as to utilize it for finding relevant or trigger events. And taking your time, multi-threading. Even if you don't get a hold of several of the individuals, you'll find one or two individuals. You just got to take advantage of LinkedIn. So, not a fast-paced thing. You're using this properly.
Right. I think this again goes back to the kind of products and services you're selling. If it's a very complex or it's a high ticket product, yes, you need to take a lot of time. If it's
Yeah.
even if it is a small ticket product or a service, you may not necessarily have to, space out that email maybe after a week or so, but then keep a minimum of 5 days. You need to give at least a minimum of 5 days time for a person who's seeing this email to digest and to come back to you. Don't send emails right after, let's say, second day or third day, or just don't call them up. Just because somebody's opened your email today, it doesn't mean that you have to call them tomorrow and say, hey, I saw you check my email yesterday, what do you think about it?
Yeah.
Just give them time to actually respond. Let them really go through what you're really trying to sell.
Love it. Listen, man, this has been fantastic. I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show today and sharing our insights. If folks want to get in touch with you to learn a little bit more about you, connect with you on LinkedIn, what is the best way for them to go about doing so, Kanan?
Absolutely. I think I'm on LinkedIn. It's Kiran, Kiran, Kiran Ramaiah, Ramaiah. Of course, people can also reach out to me on my website. It's admeetings.com. That's something that I'm trying to build, and they can connect with me there. And I would love to chat around this cadences, and see if we can be of help.
Well, I love it, man. This has been very insightful, very helpful for us. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today. Thanks so much for being such a, value to our community. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Donald. It's an absolute pleasure.
Hey, that was Karan. If you haven't done so already, please go ahead and connect with him. We have a link down in the show notes. You can check out all of his information, his full LinkedIn profile, check out his company, and check out some of the great things that he's working on. I absolutely love the idea of spreading out that sequence longer. Hey, I'm definitely one of those 3-day email guy, and I feel we can spread that out. We've been adopting this idea of the shorter emails, see that make it effective, try to keep them like text messages as well. And I like this idea of, making sure that you look for this, obviously grab attention content and then the relevancy content. I didn't put two and two together and realize how we're doing that, kind of like make formulaic, procedure with it until this conversation. So, anyways, find out more about that, and we have this all in our LinkedIn prospecting course, by the way. So if you want to check it out, we have, doing some webinar coming up soon. So I would love for you to go ahead and hit me up, and I'll tell you all about that. We're launching our next cohort in February, and it's going to be super dope. We teach you, with our promise with our LinkedIn prospecting course is that we teach you how to generate at least 3 appointments per week, at least, without, spamming, and it works. Check it out. Find more information down below. As always, I want you to thrive. I want you to succeed. I want you to raise your level of thinking. Most importantly, I want you to be able to I want you to be able to get those appointments and build a pipeline going into this new year. I want you to be able to close more deals than you've ever done before. I want you to be able to enjoy the revenue, the income that can come from a great sales career. I want you to go out and do big things.